Yep, we're recording.
Oh, booyah. Okay, great. Fantastic. Let's get this started.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay, well,
I guess I'll pass it to you once we finish with this part.
So today is July 10th, 2018. We are sitting here in Allen Pond Park, and it's a really quite nice day. I'm Ellen Dahl. I will be interviewing E.N. Rader for this afternoon. So, I guess we can get started. I mean, we want to make this a nice...
Apologies ahead of time for the shaky cam.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it works. But, get started, I guess, talk a little bit about your background first.
Okay. Well, it could be interesting, artistically speaking, to record somebody's face while they're interviewing somebody. We're going for genuine interview.
Yeah, genuine interview.
Guess this makes a better background.
A nice look around here. So, okay, well, let's just talk. You were born in Florida. And you didn't stay in Florida for very long, did you? I don't know.
No, for about, what, 2-3 years, I think?
Something like that, because you were a military brat.
Yes.
You traveled. But I always remember you saying that you grew up you were born in a swamp.
Yes, I was born in the swamp.
Yeah. But, so let's see. Well, one of the things, I guess, that they always sort of ask for these interviews is, when did you first get interested in art? You know.
Well, it's never... I can remember when I saw art as art. But when we first moved to Maryland, or, you know, the DMV area, we, of course, went to the museums because we were just the permanent tourists.
What, about when did you move to the DC area?
I think when I was around first grade, however old that is.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up with a museum as my playground. And in high school, I guess I kind of saw what art could be on the walls. I remember that was the Andy Warhol Shadow show at the Hirshhorn.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and we met in high school, of course, because we took...
Yes. I think I annoyed you quite a lot.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't annoy me. No, because we took, I think the first time we really actually met, though, was class, right? Because we hadn't really... I think we were sort of on the periphery of each person's friend group. You know, my friends knew you, but I didn't personally know you. But anyway, yeah, so then we met in our AP Art History, Mr. Kyler's class. You sat somewhere in front of me.
I think I was catty corner to you.
Yeah.
Because I could remember I could see your eye rolls, so you weren't directly behind me.
Yeah, no, I feel like Kelly was in front of me and you were somewhere. Well, anyways. But yeah, and I remember that you just used to wear your Kiss boots a lot.
Oh, God, those.
Those clunky Kiss boots, and we were in a temporary, and you would come in at the beginning of class, clunk, 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 and the temporary would shake just a little bit, and everybody would turn to look at you, and then sometimes you would wear that orangutan fur coat.
It's not real orangutan.
No, I know.
It just looks orangutan.
It's just orange.
To be clear.
That was always... I liked that. I thought that was fun. I think I remember thinking that you seemed like a fun person. And then we sort of talked a little bit because we sat next to each other, or near each other anyways. And we had... I remember we had... I think when I found out that you were an artist was when we worked on that one project together. I can't remember what the prompt was. But it might have been extra credit? I think it was extra credit, and it was, we had to do like a Mannerist Last Supper.
Oh yeah, the Last Supper, and have Kyler as the patron.
Yeah, we put Kyler in there, and we sort of based it off of, I think it was Tintoretto's Last Supper?
I think so. I remember it was the smoky one.
Yeah, the one with all the fun little swirly things and ghost-looking angels or whatever they were. And I remember you did the bulk of that. Like, I can't remember who else I think it was a 3-person thing. We might have been working with Ruth, maybe? I don't recall.
Might have been Ruth.
But,
remember it was somebody who was more your friend than my friend. I was just like, oh gosh, I don't know these two people quite as well.
Yeah, but I was really impressed because you did the bulk of it. And I remember you got Kyler's likeness pretty good. And he appreciated that. I think he got a good chuckle out of that. I can remember. But that was, I feel like you used pastels.
Oil pastels.
Oil pastels? Alright, yeah. And then we found out that we were both got into the same college.
Yeah, I think on the same day.
Yeah, probably. I think I overheard you say to someone, like, oh, I got into St. Mary's College of Maryland. And I was like, oh, snap, so did I. And then we were like, well, let's room together.
Yeah, it's like, what if we get a scary person?
Yeah, we didn't want to take a chance, so we thought we already knew each other a little bit. That would be a good opportunity.
We knew that each other we weren't psychotic or anything.
Yeah. It seemed
reasonably clean, reasonably sane.
Seemed to make the most sense. So we got together and went to college. That was good.
Those were the times.
Yeah.
Less stress.
Did you... Now, I know you were taking... Because I think I've seen... In retrospect, I've seen some of, like, the photographs that you took during high school. But would you say that college is really when you started to get into photography?
I would say when I started... college was when I stopped taking absolutely horrible photos. I think in my photo class I was more often the subject than the photographer.
Okay. Yeah.
I was more of a painter, I guess, and drawer before college.
Yeah, in college we would go around and explore the campus, especially those first couple of weeks we would go. Both of us carrying, I'd take my little digital camera and take little shots. And that's when I started taking photographs of you taking photographs.
Yeah, you had your whole little mini-series, My Roommate.
Yeah, that's been a theme. I keep doing that. Sooner or later that's going to have to accompany you. Just like a book by me of just you taking photographs.
There'll be a little show in like a room at the MoMA.
Yeah.
It will be well reviewed in Art Forum.
Yeah, could be. But yeah, we would take those little trips around campus. That was a good thing, I think, for both of us. Just to get a bit of a handle on where we were and explore things. But then, of course, you started taking those photography classes in college, and you got into experimenting a little bit more with different, modes and methods of photography.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, I thought that was kind of cool when you would come back from class and you'd have all sorts of different things. I remember, oh God, what were they? What are they called? The ones where you would, the paper would be immersed in a chemical, and then you would put something on top of paper and sit it in the sunlight, and it would go blue.
Sanotype.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah, those. I remember you doing that with plants and all those. Coming back.
Oh
with
yeah,
those.
I forgot about those. Except for all the flowers died today.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, those were fun to do. And some of those plants we gathered while we were on our walks.
Very true. Very true. We were always picking stuff up, going around. Very fun. I remember that was good. But alright, so let's see. I got some questions.
The serious stuff.
Those are questions. Okay. Well, one of the things that I'd be interested to hear more about, because, nowadays, I don't know exactly when you started your journals. That was in college.
No, it was senior year of college, though. The first journal was Berlin Study Abroad. That's
right. Okay. And I don't know. I've always been kind of curious at what sort of prompted the journals to be put together, because they're very, not to demean them, but they're very sort of scrapbooky, very multimedia, found objects, clips from things, photographs that you've taken, drawings that you do, that kind of thing. So I guess I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit more about them.
Well, you kind of find some images that just look interesting together. Like something that's a little bit funny, or you're trying to gather all these different ideas for a project. And of course, if you're doing stuff that's prompt-based or a photo work, or even if you're not sure where you're going to go with a particular piece that is a thing you can sketch, it's fun to collect all these different ideas. Like, let's see, I'm just going to open one of my sketchbooks up to a page.
Oh, yeah.
Like an advertisement that says the walls are talking, and another thing that says a embodied house, and some reviews of criticism of the museum, or critiquing of the museum.
So it's a little bit sort of finding connections.
Yeah, experimenting with materials. Different ideas.
Yeah,
and it makes it more interesting than just writing down your notes like,
yeah,
okay, this piece will have to have these restrictions, or this place is somewhere I want to photograph, but this light isn't right, so I need to return at this and this hour.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's interesting. Artist books, artist journals have always been kind of really quite interesting to me, because of course my sister is an illustrator, freelance illustrator, and her sketchbooks and her journals are very different from yours, because it is a lot of notes, like, you know, practical sort of notes on sizing and ideas, and she's very regimented and, you know, organized with it, and occasionally there'll be like a little bit of a little sketch that she does, but a large majority of her sketchbooks are just writing, because it's just how she works best. That's how she best pulls together her ideas. Because she doesn't really actually do works in her sketchbooks. She just sort of plans things.
I often find it's hard to find my ideas if I'm just writing things down. So like a lot of times the images will just be something that, like for example, one time I was at the museum I work at, the Phillips collection, and they had de-installed a piece that was installed in a fairly large niche. And it was just this strange sort of curatorial Ozymandias. If I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I have no idea. Yeah, okay.
But it was sort of this, all the things we put on the walls will one day be
removed,
no longer there. Sort of a weird thing to think as an artist and as a art historian. But all these little ideas or peoples to look up, interesting things.
Yeah, it's very stream of conscious, I'd say.
Yeah.
The way that you write. How do you?
Some planning, but yeah.
Yeah, because you're. I'd say, you know, you tend to have sort of like themes for your pages. Do you plan those? I mean, I know you plan those themes ahead of time to a certain extent, but do you also just kind of go with the flow of what you pick up and things like that?
A lot of times it'll be, I have this idea, or I'm going to be working on this project. Like, for example, for this work, the interview, its actual page is still not done. There's probably going to be like a reactions sort of page.
Yeah.
But it'll be a lot of things that either are, I happen to find that remind me of what I'm going to be doing, or I have a whole box filled with different scraps of paper that I'll sort through to try and get some different ideas. Like old bits of art forum, old bits of newspaper, sort of random detritus of the streets. But a little bit more clean than, say, Rauschenberg's or Johns's collections, shall I say.
Okay.
A nice tidy little box of random bits of scrap.
Yeah.
I'll often pick up stuff that I get at local museums and such.
Yep, I've certainly noticed that. And a lot of your newspaper clippings are from the newspapers that are given out at like the metro stations.
Yeah, the Express.
Yeah, the Express. I noticed that.
That's one of the pages that's always planned in a sketchbook. For every month that sketchbook covers, there's going to be a news medium page, or the news as medium.
Yeah, and those are becoming a lot more crowded, I've noticed over time.
Yeah, well, there keeps being all this news.
Yeah.
The news just doesn't stop.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Though I do try to include some sort of like happier moments in the news, just because it gets to be such a dark composition sometimes.
Yeah, certainly these past couple of years. But yeah, you got a little light, happy story there.
And then also the abuse called routine in Yemeni prisons under Emirati control. But just to show what happened that month, not sort of a counter Kawara.
Kind of contextualizing what you've done in the scrapbook.
Yeah.
For that month. Yeah, that's a scrapbook. I'm sorry, I'm calling it a scrapbook. It's a journal.
Taj book.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've always found your journals to be quite fun and interesting. And of course, you have a new one. It seems every time I see you, you have a new sort of brick size.
They usually last maybe 2 months, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Maybe we just need to see each other more often. We really have no excuse. We live across the highway from each other.
True. Yeah. If we
With
can.
the cupcake art, I'll probably be like, "Hey, Ellen, do you want to hang out? And can you please take some cupcakes?"
Yep. I'm down for that. Anytime. I'm so down for that. What prompted that, by the way? I've been wondering because it's such a fun. It's a fun project, but it's also sort of very different from what you've done in the past because now you're involving baking.
Well, I did do one piece that involved baking before, cookies for Klaus Oldenburg. That was sort of a reaction to Klaus's I am for an art.
Okay.
Sort of this little criticism and thumbing of the nose. Like, is this the art you wanted? Did you get the art you wanted?
Okay.
I did not realize he was alive at that time. And I kind of like, ooh. I could have actually probably just asked him or it's one of those, oh, I thought I was talking to the dead. Because there's, of course, all these weird religious and sacred connotations to sharing of food.
That's very true.
Like communion wafers and such.
Yeah.
The idea of leaving food at a particular temple and a desire to communicate with the dead or the deity.
Or leaving food at a grave for them to have during the afterlife. Or, when they come and visit, like
Dios de los Muertos?
Yes, Day of the Dead. And they go and they leave the food on the grave so that when their ancestors and everybody come and visit that night, they have food.
I remember one of the first real books that affected how I thought about reading.
Yeah.
Both reading art and reading literal text was, I believe it's called How to Read Like a College Professor. It was an assigned reading for, I believe, AP English Lang.
Okay.
And we had to annotate it, so that was also a little bit of the start of the annotated art history series.
Yeah.
But he had this whole article on the meaning of sharing food and literature and how food is eaten and how it is shared and what it represents.
Okay. And how do you choose what artists to tackle with the project?
I guess I should say what the cupcakes themselves are. They're supposed to be these, and I apologize for my friend's pronunciation. I know it's not the best. These amuse-bouche or amuse-gueule. I know that means amuse the mouth and amuse the snout. The amuse the snout is the more appropriate, but it's been sort of, for the sake of propriety, turned to amuse the mouth, as opposed to the more amuses the snout. But it's the idea of the chef sort of being able to put all of their influences in a little bite, sort of to introduce you to who they are as a chef.
Okay.
So introduce you to who these artists, these artworks are. It's sort of a gallery label.
Oh, okay.
But when I saw that, I knew I immediately had to do something with it. And then I was reading another one of my art theory books, just a short guide to contemporary art theory. And they were discussing Kantian theories and how a strawberry may be beautiful, but once you pop it in your mouth, it's no longer just beautiful, it's a practical object, which I'm not sure anything can't, no pun intended, not be a practical object. But there's this whole idea of like, you're not going to get, and a little amuse-bouche cupcake is not going to satisfy your stomach. It's there to stimulate the mind.
It's a tease.
Yes.
It's a little teaser.
But so, I saw that and I was like, oh. Just immediately connected. And I think there's something very DC about cupcakes. I think they almost remind me of a lot of our structures. Like, they have the sort of columns on the side and the dome on the top.
Oh.
Little tiny pantheons. Yes, pantheons.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Kyler.
Neoclassical sort of architecture being connected there.
There's something very Phillips about specifically these tiny little cupcakes. They're very intimate. Unlike, say, like Of course, sharing pad thai is a much more communal experience, but with these tiny little cupcakes, it's more of an individual experience. You are probably going to be end up eating these around a bunch of other people, but it is your experience alone.
Yeah. I like
But
that.
I select works. For it, I want to choose masterworks from the collection.
Okay, from the Phillips collection.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are works, of course, I have to include the cornerstones of the collection, like the Wolfgang Leib Wax Room or the Rothko, our luncheon at the boating party. But then I also selecting masterworks that show sort of the breadth and wealth of the collection.
A little bit more of the diversity. What's not necessarily... Would you ever do any of the works that aren't necessarily like on display?
Well, there's a lot of works because we continually recurate the museum.
Yeah, you're rotating quite a lot.
But they're all masterworks. Currently, I believe all but 2 of the 13 are on display.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I wanted to show, I didn't want to repeat any movements or any artistic styles.
So a nice sort of it's not just a sample size of the artist and the artwork, but a sample size of the collection as well.
Well, sort of to that extent what modernism is, because of course the Phillips Centennial is also and we like to think of it at least, as the centennial of modernism. Okay. Which also brings up the cupcakes as sort of these aesthetic objects, but then how can they be modern? They can't really, it's impossible probably to be a modern artist. I think we're all contemporary artists. The thought virus has spread to everyone now. If that makes any sense.
Sure, no, I get you there. Oh, one of the things, I guess could you talk a little bit about your process for making, or for like sort of like the planning out and then the actual baking part of the cupcakes? Like, how do you do a lot of research beforehand to figure out what flavors, what textures, you know, that kind of thing that you want to achieve with these cupcakes?
I do quite a bit of research both before and after. There's a lot of things that'll be, like obviously the Wolfgang Leib Wax Room is going to have honey, for example. But I might draw from stuff represented in the work or the artist's own background.
Okay.
Maybe the colors, or a lot of materials sort of represent more than people initially think. Like, for example, hazelnuts were a food of early humans. And then there's also this childhood tale of the Hazelnut Kid, I believe it was called. But so there's all these other little connections that you might not be aware of. For example, for Barbara Hepworth, an Englishwoman, I chose an Earl Grey cupcake because it has this very, to sort of use a weird way of describing it, a very round flavor.
Okay.
So there's both this learned and not necessarily instinctive, but almost synthesia aspect to it.
Okay.
And there's some flavors you just remind you of certain things, like a celebration, or, for example, strawberries and champagne. There's this idea that Renoir was celebrating being with his friends and having enough money to not be starving. So it's very celebratory. And then Rothko, of course, is a very dark, rich cupcake that's also a sort of study in color.
And if you can manage to get like a buzz to help blur the lines a little bit, maybe.
Oh, well, I don't think you'll get, if you're eating enough cupcakes to get a buzz. Though I suppose eventually the cupcakes will end up being served with probably champagne.
Champagne.
You have to have something to drink with them, and I don't think the museum fancies giving people tiny glasses of milk.
Little thimbles of milk. Although milk is always a great thing for cupcakes.
Most cupcakes, at least. And of course, they can't vary too much from the Plato's cupcake. What is the form cupcake? What we think when we think cupcake. So they're all sort of. They have to be, they have to be sweet. They have to be fluffy. They have to have frosting. They have to be what we define as a cupcake.
So no savory cupcakes?
No savory cupcakes.
Whether you ever include savory elements in cupcakes?
It depends on how you define savory. There is like peanut butter and tea and other stuff that isn't just sweet. But there's not going to be a bacon cupcake.
Candied bacon, nothing of that kind. Okay, interesting. Very interesting.
I'm very grateful for my coworkers helping me with the project. I make about 48 cupcakes a week, and I cannot possibly eat 48 cupcakes on my own. So my coworkers have been very generous in assisting me.
Yeah, good, good. Otherwise you wouldn't have any of your teeth left.
No.
Your fridge would just be stocked full of mini cupcakes.
Yeah. I'm sure people are a little bit alarmed. I'm just like, no, please take a cup. Please. No, you're not. Just take them.
Take the cupcakes.
Yeah, take them. Just take them away.
I don't need them anymore. Take them away.
So, of course, it's going till 2021, and these cupcake recipes have to be perfect. They have to be sublime. And they definitely have to be edible. I do think that food art you can't consume sort of says the wrong thing about art. It sort of says this isn't for you if it's not something you can eat. But these are about sharing.
I like that. That's very true. And are these, once you've sort of done a recipe, do you ever plan on revisiting that recipe, or is it...
Yes, I'm taking extensive trial notes about how that recipe turned out, what I want to change about it. So this is all going to be in a little document book that'll feature the eventual final recipe and also documents the journey from the initial recipe to the final. Things I decided to change with each trial run.
I like that. That sounds fun.
Also includes a little ingredients list because I do not want anyone else to die for my art. Or not anyone else. That makes it sound like, I don't know, I've got a human skin in my studio. But
How many?
I don't want anyone to die for my art.
How many casualties?
So far as I know, 0.
0. Yeah, I guess the disclaimer, if anybody's allergic to something, it would be important.
Yeah, don't die for my relational art trial.
Well, let's see. Let's talk a bit more. Oh, here's one. This is a thinker. This is one's going to make you think. How do you think your art has changed over time?
I think I've gotten a little bit better at communicating my ideas, both within the work and within the text. I did recently go through a lot of my old sketchbooks and discover some things that I'd still do today, and a lot of things that I would not do today.
Such as?
Oh, like a lot of my photo work is not stuff I would have done.
Not up to snuff?
No.
Oh.
And it focuses on very different things.
Yeah, your subject matter has changed.
Yeah, and I'm much more conceptually tight.
Okay.
But there is still the sassy, this is an artwork, do not remove duct tape sort of aspect to my contemporary work as it was to my studio artwork back in high school.
Yeah, no, I noticed that that's certainly a theme that your art has maintained, is that sort of playfulness, but like also, like, obviously all art is interactive, but your art seems almost aggressively so.
Sometimes it is aggressively so.
So I guess, I mean, that clearly that's an element that is very important to you. So I'd be interested to hear you talk a little bit about that.
I'm not a big fan of passive looking.
Could you explain what you mean by that?
Oh, just to be able to sort of walk into a museum and not really think of anything or interact with anything.
Like you're not taking anything away from it? You're just sort of looking,
yeah,
but you're not...
There can be no idle viewing in my work.
Right. Yeah, no, I feel like I see that a lot when I visit museums. People who just kind of look around, they're looking, they sort of hit all the, you know, hit all the important artworks, look at them, take a picture of them maybe, but then they don't really, it doesn't seem to have connected with them or...
No effect on them.
Yeah, they don't seem to be taking anything away from it, which I think is a real shame. Because, you know, at that point, why not just look at it at on your computer screen kind of thing? Yeah. I feel very strongly that being in the presence of the artwork is very important to connecting with it.
I like to have a bit of humor, sort of, to like sometimes it puts people at ease, sometimes I'm sure it very much doesn't. But at least something, because there is a lot of humor and engagement. Like, there's personal elements, like, this was this person's love, or this was this person's portrait of his best friend's girl, and stuff like that. Like, all these personal details, or these details they intended to be funny, you know. The fly on the cardinal's robe, or
Right.
Vincent van Gogh showing everyone in town his portrait of Gauguin before he arrived, so people would know what Gauguin looked like. All these funny little stories that people don't know. And I like to kind of try to bring that into my own work.
Sure.
Or at least give them the impression, which is a rightful impression, but let them know there is more to this art than just some object on the wall that they can't afford.
Right, yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people do think of art as something that they can't reach, not only financially, but also conceptually. It's a very intimidating culture. The art culture today, I think, is very intimidating for a lot of people. So yeah, I think humor is certainly a good way to break down that, to sort of act like that icebreaker and break down that barrier that people may feel, to help them connect a little bit more to it, help it be a little bit more human. I don't know if that's a weird way to say it.
I think that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
Because I think most artists don't view themselves as these, like, blank white cubes. But I do think that people get that impression sometimes with art. Like, it's okay to laugh in a museum, and it's okay not to understand something or to have a different interpretation from someone.
Yeah, I do think that that's one of the things that I don't really know how to solve in museums, especially art museums, that I notice, is that there seems to be, there's like a lot of outward pressure when you're looking at an artwork. Especially if it's a crowded room, you have the pressure to keep moving because other people want to see the object. Maybe you're blocking it, or you start worrying a little bit about, like, okay, well, what's that person thinking about me because I'm sitting here staring at this? You know, you become very self-conscious in art galleries, I find, and I'm not sure how to make that better, because I think that does damage the interactions that people have with the artworks, because they're not, you know, alone in the room. They're not able to just sit there with the artwork and have their sort of back and forth, because they also have the pressure.
Just you and the artwork, it can also be intimidating.
That's very true. That's very true. Sometimes I kind of enjoy that from artworks, though, if they're intimidating.
All depends on the work.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But that's something because even I, you know, I visit galleries and, you know, art museums and things, and I try to, you know, make it a rule to, if I want to spend a lot of time in front of this artwork, I'm going to spend some time in front of this artwork, you know, until I feel comfortable, or like I feel like I'm done here, kind of, you know. But you do have that pressure to keep moving.
And then sometimes it's just so crowded, you're just like, okay, I'm just...
Yeah, gosh, I certainly, when I went to Versailles, the Palace of Versailles last April, the gardens were lovely. I love the gardens. I would go back there every day if I could, get one of those seasonal passes for that. But in the interior of the palace, from what we were allowed to see, God, you were packed in there like sardines. You had to just constantly be shuffling along. You couldn't take your time. You couldn't, you know, sometimes you couldn't even look around because everybody was raising their arms to try to get pictures of the room. And it was just, it made it almost an unpleasant experience, which was a darn shame, because I think if it had been less crowded and I hadn't had to rush along, I could have enjoyed the gaudiness of it a little bit more. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I don't think that's bound to change anytime soon, because it's such a popular destination. But
I do have a lot of hope. I feel like, because of course we don't want to limit access to these things, because then it becomes even more of a status thing to be able to see this art.
Exactly, yeah,
but I do think that I hope that we are going to find some way of solving it. Like, I'm very hopeful and also afraid of VR, for example, virtual reality.
Oh, the possibilities that it can, it can allow people who are unable for whatever reason to actually go and visit these collections in person to have at least part of that experience, that viewing experience. But it does, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to be optimistic about that sort of thing. Like, I do hope that it can help people and help sort of broaden the experience, but it's not the full experience.
No. And then, of course, some people, even when you see it in real life, you're not going to get the full experience. Like, not all art affects everyone equally.
This is very true.
It's not a flaw with the person or a flaw with the art, but art is a very individual thing.
Very subjective, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, let's see. I got little bits of grass on me now. Gonna have some dead ants in your...
Add some character to the sketchbook.
Little dead ants. Let's see. Oh. I'd say less so now. But certainly when you were in college, your focus was very much photography. That was your sort of medium, the medium that you worked most often in. I think the medium that you preferred. Do you still prefer that medium? Because clearly you're becoming more multimedia kind of artist. But is photography still the preferred method?
I would say that photography, and I'm obviously very biased on this, is sort of what you get when art is just art. Like, the camera sort of operates as this very direct frame between the eye of the artist and the world. And I think that's a lot of what art does. It frames something that was already in existence, and it shows you how the artist sees. I think photography is the most direct way of doing that. And then, of course, there's all sorts of different cameras that you can use to communicate different visions. But usually I work with whatever space I have. Like, for example, I don't have a studio right now, so a lot of my stuff is prompts that can be enacted in the future, or very small works that are what I can do with the space I have.
Yeah, because you certainly use a lot of different cameras, different types of film, different processes to get your message across.
Yeah.
Like you have your those little Instax ones. You have your the black and white ones that you did a lot at college.
Polaroid, digital.
Yeah.
Medium format.
Yeah, you're all over the place.
Yeah. Whatever I have, I'll make art with.
Yeah. So is it just sort of like a practical thing? Or, I mean, clearly you enjoy the experimentation aspect as well.
I see every medium as having its own language that may or may not, or of course may and may not, in different sections or pieces, interact with other mediums. Every medium has its own language, and you can communicate the same thing from medium to medium, but I do like to use the particularly unique aspect of that medium's language.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. Yeah, I'm particularly fond of I think I've always liked sort of small artworks, and with your little Instax ones, I always like especially the way that you frame them. Oftentimes you'll frame them with very large mat, and they're sort of stuck in the middle, and you have to get real up and close and personal with them.
Yeah, I like to control the viewer's movement through space. You can do that with pretty much anything, just by size and scale and how you show something.
Or literally like you did in your SMP with the arrows on the floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very physically forcing somebody through the space because they can't get out because the crowd is behind them pushing them onwards.
Yeah. And I noticed also that you would make it a little difficult. Some of the spaces were uncomfortable to move in. but that was the way that you had to go through it.
It's like, I might give you a cookie, I might force you into an awkward corner or lock you in a dark room.
Yeah.
That sounds scarier than it's intended to. But I do like to at least create some sort of reaction, interaction between the viewer and the artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if the viewer doesn't necessarily, recognize references that you're making, they still get an experience. It may be a physical experience out of the whole thing.
They might not necessarily get it, but they've sort of been forced to try.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been put through something.
Yes.
Not to make it sound like it's, a
Not to make it sound like my art is a Saw movie or anything.
No. But, that they've been... Yeah, that they've had to have an experience regardless. And they've taken something away from that experience. Whatever that something may be, they've taken something away from it,
It's not a conceptual or minimalist art that allows you to just not get it. It's not dry, or... I don't want to say it's not arrogant either, because it does have all that, obscure art references, and it is designed to be seen in a museum or gallery space, typically.
Right.
But it's not refusing to acknowledge your presence in the space.
Sure. Right. It feels like it couldn't quite exist if you weren't there also. That kind of thing?
In a very real way, it couldn't. Like, I don't think art can exist necessarily without being seen and having some kind of effect on the viewer. Like, if it doesn't have some kind of effect on the viewer, it might as well be a wall.
Exactly, yeah. Is it art if it's not doing anything?
Is it art if it stands in an empty room and is never seen?
Yeah. I feel like you could start bar fights with that.
I'm sure somebody has.
Definitely in certain bars.
I kind of wonder if, like, if you go to Art Basel and you just shout, "What is art?" Like, you're just gonna start, not necessarily a mosh pit, because that's more involves music, but, it'll be a Scrabble, I think.
Yeah. Might start some riots. Especially if they're drunk.
Yeah. Might be the best way to go through an art fair.
They're challenging.
Bowie's one time did actually box one of his students, which, I don't know about most people, but I don't think I'd want to box one of my teachers.
Like, actually physically, like a boxing match?
Like...
Oh my gosh. Like it was a planned ahead boxing match?
Which, can you imagine having your professor come to you like, "Hey, can you box me?" Thanks. It's like, do you win? Do you try your best because they taught you to try your best?
Is it graded?
Yes, is this it? I'm sorry, sir. I'll box you, but is this graded?
This is going to be on the final exam.
Is this pass-fail?
Oh my gosh. That would be very uncomfortable.
Terrifying ways to go through your MFA.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, at least studio critique would be a bit more satisfying, I suppose.
Get your frustrations out.
Yeah. Get your frustrations out in a very, very overly real way.
Yeah. Very tactile way. Yeah, studio critiques. That's something I only briefly experienced in high school, and Lord knows nobody was actually trying to critique you in high school.
This is good.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it's cute. It seems well done.
I do like to make art that you can't really say, "Oh, this is pretty," or "Oh, this is well done."
Right.
You have to be like,
This
is a thing.
This doesn't make me comfortable. I'm kind of uncomfortable around this object, and I need to figure out why. Yeah. You want people to think about it.
You have to figure the work as opposed to just say that it's a pretty object.
Right. It's not a sort of you can't have a superficial reaction, really, to it as your goal there.
Except for maybe, "Oh, nice cookie. Oh, a cupcake." But then that kind of plays with the idea of modernism, I suppose. And with Klaus Oldenburg, it's sort of like, well, you got your cookie art. Is this what you meant? Take you at your word.
Yeah, very much so. I'm gonna take a quick drink here. Put this guy down. Maybe you're looking at your knees. Who knows?
Hopefully, just my knees.
Sorry. We'll censor that out. It's quite nice in the shade, actually.
Yeah. Glad we decided not to do it on the boat. Just get one of the little swan paddle boats. I think we would have had a very short interview that would have had a lot of, well...
Splash. Out of breath. Yeah, and also I would have the fear that I would definitely drop this poor little fellow into the water and thus be sued. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think I have the money to sue you,
We'd have to
Ellen.
scrape the bottom scrape the bottom of the pond. Lord knows what.
Just be like, well, I guess we'll try to do an interview next time.
I think I don't hang out in parks often enough. It's free. You can just hang out, commune with nature and people. I don't know. I feel like the brief time that I was abroad, I feel like their parks are a little bit more accessible isn't quite the right word, but in a way it is.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling like during my study abroad it was sort of these, we kind of viewed parks as little tiny museums because we'd see all these weird sculptures that we didn't know what they were, like some strange dwarfish creature that's a child's, like, whereas we have no context for it, so we're reading it like an artwork, like, why is there a pregnant dwarf holding his belly in this children's playground? Is this a popular children's tale, or
no.
Are we supposed to be standing on this thing?
Yeah.
We can stand on it. Nobody's fussing at us. How are we supposed to interact with this space?
Yeah. I don't know. I always felt like parks are taken more seriously there, which, like, parks are clearly for the community here, even so, but it felt even more so. Maybe the parks are just older. I don't know what that feeling was, but I'm kind of missing that. Like, I feel like we don't utilize our parks as a culture as much as we should, because they're good spaces. I don't know. I'm going to take them more seriously. This is just me putting a personal.
I'm not trying to think of what the difference between a museum or gallery and a park is. I think I could do something with that. Might be in the sketchbook soon.
Oh, ooh. Prompting her ideas. Look at me.
Art consumes art.
I should have brought a little baggie so I could pick up trash.
Yeah.
That's what we used to do when we were kids. My dad, when he would take us for walks or we would go to the park, he'd always bring a large trash bag. And it would be a game for us to pick up as much trash as we could.
I like that as a game.
That's the kind of person my parents were, and I think they raised us pretty well. Because now whenever I'm in a park, I'm like noticing trash and being like...
For me it was more hopscotch goose poop.
God, goose poop. That stuff ruins. It's all over the place. I think that's the worst bird poop.
Yes.
Goose poop. That stuff gets everywhere.
So, next interview question?
Sorry, yes. Back to the interview. You'd probably cut out that whole bit about
this is getting unedited.
Oh, it's just gonna go run the whole length.
Yeah, so it's like, I hope you're just recording my legs.
Oops. Oh no. Who knows what I just saw?
I don't know. This will be an interesting thing to have on Vimeo, I suppose. The artist revealed. Actually, I think that's probably what this piece is going to be titled. Hang on a second.
The artist revealed. That's a good one. In more ways than one. Let's see. Let's watch her work.
Damn it, now I'm trying to think if I actually remember how to spell anything. It's revealed 1 L or 2 L's.
Lord knows, I'm a phonetic speller, man. College education, but phonetic spelling.
We'll learn that in grad school. Yeah, I'm going to do this proper spelling for it, though, in the eventual piece.
I feel like it totally is 1L. We'll find out. We'll find out when people start commenting and they're like, this bitch can't spell.
I can't. I mean, that is true.
That's part of who she is.
It's very, by the strap of your boots. Is that the proper phrase, or am I mixing sayings?
You're pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. By the seat of your pants. That's what you meant. Seat of your pants.
I'm not wearing any pants. I'm only wearing a romper.
Well, then we better keep this up and look at your face.
Yes.
So, I guess...
A bit late for that, though, with an unedited video.
Well, we'll have to watch it, and we'll have to make sure, and we'll put like a leaf. Like a little leaf.
Cute fig leaf.
Yeah. I guess another question that I was thinking about is sort of, if there was one takeaway that somebody could sort of get from your whole body of work, what would that be? Like, what is sort of the ultimate thing you're trying to get people to take away from your work?
I suppose that the art is here to see you. I think art in the viewer needs to be in art, and there needs to be the artist in art. And this sort of is a communicative medium. Like, even art that's supposed to speak to you on a very deep level isn't just there as a visual object. Art has a very physical presence, and it is here to physically be around you. That's not dismissing like VR digital art, because that is still around you.
Yeah, it has its own type of presence.
Art is to be experienced. That is my final word.
That art is to be experienced. That's a good general. I remember there's that one, I forget, it was some sort of interview, and
that'll be the tagline for the description. Artist to be experienced interview between Ellen Dahl and Ian Rader.
I remember that one interview, and at the end of the interview, it was like 3 different artists. The interviewer asked, in 3 words, what is art?
Art is... How is the exact terminology, I guess? Like, is art is part of the sentence, so you have to decide on one word, or...
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's how they all answered it.
I'm trying to decide between question or interaction. Because I don't think art necessarily should be answering questions. It should be a dialogue. Art is a dialogue. I have to say the A in there because somewhat proper English.
Sure, no, I get it.
Maybe not the proper spelling of any English.
Art is a dialogue. That's a pretty good one. I feel like every person you ask would have something different. And in a way, they're all right.
Oh, yeah. That old question that would make every single student groan in an art class, what is art?
Yeah, when we did that art theory.
And then, is Marcel Duchamp art? And then your art history teacher would just sit back and...
let you go. Yeah, those conversations I think were the most frustrating. Just trying to come to grips with your own ideas.
But not all art is good art.
Yeah. Art theory's always been tough for me.
Oh, I love art theory, but I'm sure that with any theory you can find a lot of problems with, and I know we sure as hell tried in our art theory class. I do believe Lucchese are referring to. Art theory professor got rather frustrated with us finding issues with every single damn paper he gave us.
Well, I think that was what he wanted, though. At the same time,
I think he might have gotten more than what he wanted.
Possibly. But we were a good group. Good group of very intelligent individuals.
Modest, too.
Oh, that's cute. I do miss that. I miss that group of people. I really do.
So I try to ambush visitors in the museum and get them to talk about art with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's also a good way to connect to the artworks. If the person is intimidated by it, to have someone there as a facilitator in a way is very important, to sort of encourage that connection along, to help them make connections where they might not have seen those connections. You know, even in the museum that I work, the National Capital Radio and Television Museum, there's a plug there for you.
Phillips Collection. Like us on Facebook and Instagram. And Twitter. Follow us on Twitter.
True.
It's a good museum. Visit it.
But that's a history museum. But I find that people get a lot more out of their visit when they take the docent-led tours, because our docents, a lot of them they have a background in broadcasting or electrical engineering or, you know, something of that nature, and so they have a very personal connection to these objects, and they help engage the visitors with these objects and with the history, and then the visitors feel comfortable sharing their own personal experiences. We get a lot of people
tell you that it's okay.
Yeah.
Like a comforting
presence.
I do try to be that.
This is a place for sharing.
When I'm in the museum.
Yeah, and this is a place for sharing and connecting and, you know, all that sort of wonderful thing. And I do enjoy seeing and hearing that when the visitors are there, and they're really, you know, some of them come in, and when it's the older folks that come in, they'll have a very personal connection to some of those objects because they, you know, their parents had them, or their grandparents had that particular model, or they remember listening to this radio show, and, you know, that kind of thing. And some of their kids, you know, the sort of 30s, 40s grouping, and they'll come in and they have some connections to some of the television stuff that we have, and some of the shows and the programs, things that they heard from their parents. And then, of course, you have our generation and younger, these kids coming in. It's harder. It's a lot harder for them to connect to these objects.
Well, I wonder with, like, how instant cameras are coming back, and not gramophones. What are they called?
Record players?
Yeah, record players.
Yeah. That's sort of
coming back.
Retro.
I wonder if that'll help.
I think with our generation, that interest in the retro, in technology from, you know, from that time period, I think with our generation certainly, but with the young, like the kids that come in, they don't know that there ever was black and white television. You know, they don't know that there ever was a rotary phone, or, you know, some of them don't really know much about remote controls because they have a lot of touchscreen things, and so they don't really understand how important those innovations were at the time, what effect they had, and sort of. So it's always very interesting, I think, to listen to those kids as they sort of get brought through, because the museum's set up chronologically, sort of this development, and then trying to connect it to the, you know, the objects that you have in your hand today. You know, like that cell phone. Your cell phone is a radio, but here's how it got to that point, right? So that's one thing that I think all museums.
And sometimes I kind of prefer when a guard or some other person in the museum space can basically give you the shorthand, because so many people get so tired of, like, the long form of history.
Sure. No, that's very true, and I know we certainly struggle with that, you know, finding that good middle ground, because not everybody's interested in the technical side. But it's very hard to distance the technical side from this particular set of history. There's a lot of stuff to work on. I think all museums are certainly struggling with that. How to connect with the younger generations. And that's really the important question these days in the museum field, I think.
Yeah. But museums have lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years, and probably more than that. I think we will eventually find our way. I think it's just going to be a very difficult process.
I think the libraries beat us to it. Because they became, because libraries, their original purpose isn't, they would be able to function today if all they were a place to get books, right? Because there are so many other ways with digital technology and, the internet and things to access reading material and do research and things like that. You don't have to go to a library anymore. But so libraries realized this, I think, a lot sooner than museums did, that that they need to connect a little bit more, that they need to become community spaces for people
places
to gather.
Of gathering.
Exactly.
Community.
And so, they started doing a lot more with, like educational classes, community gatherings, acting more like a community center. Doing different programming that would attract people of different ages and interest groups, and the push for 3D printing in a lot of libraries.
I'm very interested to see how that turns out.
Having computer access has been a really big thing, because not everybody is able to have that at home.